Hello. Welcome to you all. Welcome to another IAB UK weekly webinar. It's fantastic to see so many of you here today. The main part of the presentation today will be to go through rules of effectiveness, which is a piece of research that we published at the IAB a couple of months ago. And it takes the best campaigns. We looked at a couple of hundred campaigns and took the best ones and looked at what are the common things between them and what lessons can we learn from them. Elizabeth will take us through that in just a minute. The whole thing should probably take about 30 minutes. So hopefully not too much time out of your day. We'll just run through a few updates first of all. Just a few things that we've been up to. Probably worth mentioning the ISBAR study that came out today, which I'm sure many of you might have seen, which we've been aware of and have responded to, and are looking forward to working collectively with ISBAR and other trade bodies to kind of move the conversation on from today. And we want to play an important role within that. But the session today, we want to try and make it interactive. You'll see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A tool. I imagine all of you have spent more time in Zoom than you'd care to, so I'm sure you know your way about, but just in case you don't, there's a Q&A tool and a chat tool at the bottom. So if you have questions for us, please ask them. We'd love to hear them. Doesn't matter, what they're on. All questions very welcome. And just to practice interactivity, we're going to do a little poll in a second. Well, there we go. So you've got a little quiz that's just popped up on your screens, or you should have. And this is a little quiz of quizzes. So we'd like to know how many quizzes you've done since being in lockdown. I've been non-stop, I think, in quizzes so far. I couldn't tell you how many I've done. I've lost count, but a lot. So I'd definitely be in the lost count column. But I'm a fan of quizzes, so it's got its upsides. So we'll give you a minute just to respond to that, just to check out that the interactivity on Zoom is working. And hopefully we'll see the results. There you go. Look, a third of you, like me, have lost count. 5% of you have not done a quiz. Now, I hope that's through choice, that you've decided not to do one. If it's because no one's asked you, then please drop me an email afterwards and we will create a quiz just for you if you feel like you're missing out. It's worth just quickly running you through some of the things we've been doing around IAB Connected as well. So, as we continue in lockdown, IAB Connected brings together all the stuff that we think you'll find useful, whether that's keyword blocking, things that our members are doing, virtual training, our podcasts, our webinars. It's all in the connected section of our website, so please do check that out. And one of the things that we've just launched on it actually is some audio trends and gaming trends as well. Just looking live here as well, there's somebody couldn't see the quiz, so apologies if the quiz didn't work for you. I hope you weren't in the 5% of people that haven't done a quiz and the quiz didn't work for you today, because that would be very disappointing. But yes, we've launched both audio trends and gaming trends with a host of information from our advisory groups and steering groups, which you can access on our site. We've got a podcast on both as well, which is worth checking out, again, in the connected section of our site. And we've got a VOD trends piece coming out tomorrow as well. So make sure you look out for that. But 3 areas that have seen massive differences in usage over the last few weeks, and massive uplifts in consumer usage. So some really interesting stuff looking at that from some of the companies involved in those areas. Another area we've been working on is user ID, which is obviously critical to us and to the industry. We've got a range of work streams that are happening on this around Soundbox and Google Sandbox and how we respond to that as an industry, around Project REARC, which is a US initiative that we're sort of feeding into from a UK perspective. it's worth checking out our article on MediaTel, but have a look at our site as well. We have there's a link there to a town hall that we had on user ID, which is worth checking out. We've also got a webinar coming up as well on the 21st of May, and you can also just drop Tina a line if you want to find out more about what we're doing around user ID and the post-cookie world. One other thing that came out last week is this excellent IAB ad spend analyzer that we, for many years, we've envisaged how marvellous it would be to have this sort of interactive tool that allowed people to go and play with figures and create their own decks and slides. And after many years of thinking about how amazing it would be, we've actually delivered it, which is very exciting. So there's sort of 20 odd, well, over 23 years worth of data in there, going back from the very first ad spend study, that allows you to look at trends within different areas of it, create your own output. So make sure you go and check that out and have a play on our site, and we hope you find that useful. And then the last thing just to mention to you before I hand over to Hebe to give us a bit of an insight onto some of the things our members have been doing is just to give you an update on Engage. So this year Engage is obviously off stage, and we'll be replacing it with Stay Engaged. So rather than having a stage, it'll be replaced with a microphone, and we've got a series of inspirational presentations that will be delivered via the medium of audio straight to your laptops and phones. So we'll have live sessions happening every day from the middle of May through to the start of June. So you can sign up for notifications on our site. There's some really brilliant stuff in there, so make sure you do sign up to stay engaged with us. And now I will hand over to Hebe to give us a bit of an update on some of the exciting things our members have been up to under lockdown to help people. Hebe, over to you.
Thank you, John. I'm from the marketing team here at IAB UK. So firstly, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of the members that have been in touch over the last few weeks. It's been amazing hearing how so many of you are adapting during the COVID-19 outbreak, supporting your teams and also supporting the industry as a whole. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to share just a handful of some of the insight we've received over the last week. So first up, the focus is on small businesses. With so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know where to go for guidance, support and advice. The team over at Tide is making every effort to support small businesses by staying closely in touch with the government and publishing regular content on its Coronavirus Help Hub. The hub covers everything from financial advice, tips to running your business in lockdown, as well as handling emotions during these uncertain times. They've also launched a government support checker for small business owners to find out which scheme they might be eligible for and how to apply. So next up, it's pretty safe to say our 9 to 5 has been turned upside down. Our spending habits have come to a halt and we're all being forced to do nothing. With this in mind, video ad tech company Unruly surveyed 2,500 consumers around the world to see how the pandemic is impacting consumer interests and behaviours. The study reveals that COVID-19 is reshaping consumer content consumption, spending habits, and advertising preferences. As a result, people's views on how brands should advertise to them have also changed, and you can find out more over on our website. And finally, everyone has to adapt to these unusual times, and it's never been more important for digital advertising industry to reshape the ways in which we curate content and expect consumers to consume it. Bringing together insights and trends in the UK and from across the globe, MIQ Digital share latest need-to-knows in its weekly newsletter. From podcasts, blog posts, sector-specific insights, solutions and the latest news, these handy bite-sized newsletters are your roundup of what's going on in the industry. That's it from me this week. If you would like to get involved, please drop myself an email on hebe@iabuk.com. I'm now going to hand over to the lovely Elizabeth.
Hi everybody. Thanks, Hebe. Yes, hello, I'm Elizabeth. I'm the head of research at IAB UK. And what I'm going to do today is take you through a shortened version of a project we did last summer, looking at the rules of effectiveness for digital display campaigns. Now, it's worth saying that when we did this last year, we were already looking at how we can use digital more effectively for brand building. But we didn't quite realise, I don't think, how important it was going to become in the current context. Obviously, marketing budgets are even more squeezed than they already were. And we also know from recent UCOM data that came out that people are spending more and more time online. So it becomes even more important than I think we thought when we first did this, that we are being effective on all forms. So we're hoping that you'll find this research really, really useful. So that's a bit of a preamble. So why did we do this study last year? Well, recent WARC figures have shown that digital display is now the biggest display media and it's second only to search overall. When we did this last year, digital display was the second biggest. It's now become the biggest overall. But we still see that businesses are continuing to think about digital display more as a performance building metric platform only, and not necessarily thinking long term about how it can be used for brand building. And the IAB have been working with our members a lot to help people rethink about digital as a brand building medium. So we wanted to find out a bit more about that for this study. So we asked ourselves 3 questions. First of all, can digital display be an effective brand building medium? If it can, then what is it that makes digital display campaigns so effective? What are the ingredients that help them become more effective? And then lastly, what impact does it make if you add digital to other media for campaign effectiveness overall? The IAB are big proponents of the fact that cross-media campaigns are more effective than single channels alone. So we wanted to see whether we could find any evidence to back this up. So how did we do this study? Well, we partnered with Kantar on this study, and we're really proud of the methodology here. We were able to analyse nearly 400 campaigns that Kantar has in its database. They have one of the largest sources of data on effectiveness case studies, and they're regularly conducting campaign studies for clients. I'm sure many of you on the webinar today have commissioned Kantar to do that. So we were really pleased to be able to partner with them on this. And as I said, yes, we were able to analyse nearly 400 campaigns, and we used 2 different databases to do this. So firstly, we used Kantar's Brand Lifts Insights database, and we were able to look at 263 campaigns running from 2017 to 2019 there, and that helped us look at the average uplifts for digital campaigns overall and what the top 20% were doing. And then secondly, we used Kantar's cross-media database to do the second part of this, which was to look at cross-media campaign analysis. And in that, we were able to look at 125 campaigns going back to 2015 to see what the impact of multimedia campaigns were on people's brand KPIs overall. So it's a really strong methodology and a huge sample of campaigns that we were able to analyse. So before I go into the 6 rules, I thought I would just take you through what can be done if you do get this right. It's worth obviously saying that not all campaigns are effective. We know that that's true of all mediums, not just digital. But so what we thought we would do was look at the top 20% of digital display campaigns and see what they're doing and what makes them so effective. But what we found out from this study was that if you can do it well, the top 20% can deliver 5 times the brand KPIs of an average digital display campaign. So we found from this that they can deliver 5 times in aided awareness, in favourability and in purchase intent. So it really does go to show that getting it right can really drive your brand KPIs. So that's the sort of top line, that it can deliver 5 times the average. But we did find out 6 rules from this. So here they are. I'll go through them very, very briefly before then going into the detail for each one. And so starting from the top, the 6 rules were, first of all, keeping messaging focused. So we found out that the more messages that an ad has, the less well remembered they are. Secondly, prominent branding, so making sure that the brand is in view as much as possible. Saying something new, providing new information to make it worth a view from the consumer. In fourth, is targeting, so the more relevant and targeted ads are more likely to drive those brand metrics. 5, likable ads, ads that scored high on a likability scale were more standout and more memorable. And then lastly, well integrated. So those campaigns that were customised multimedia campaigns were found to over-index in their contribution towards brand metrics. Now, obviously, it's worth saying none of these are eureka moment rules. These are all things that brand marketing teams have been talking about for a long time. But what this report really shows is that what is true for traditional mediums, so what's been talked about for TV, print, on out of home, even radio, is true for digital too, and doesn't always get talked about in this way. But secondly, what I think comes across really strongly from this are the robust numbers that are behind these rules, and the fact that we were able to analyse nearly 400 codes shows that there really is evidence that these rules work in practice. So now what I'll do is I will take you through those 6 rules in detail. Before I do that, it's worth saying at this point that a lot of the rules use quite complex methodology, and Kantar used a really robust technique to analyse some of this. So what we've done is, where we found a brand that really carried out this rule effectively, we thought it'd be easier to showcase that as an example to make the rule easier to understand. So for quite a few of these rules, we have case studies. So to begin with, keep the messaging focused. And now this is probably the clearest of the rules that we came up with, in that consistently across the top 20% of digital display campaigns, those that had a single message showed much higher consumer recall. So if we look at the first bubble, what Kantar saw is that for campaigns with one message, there was a 42% recall, which is very high. But as soon as a second message was introduced, that became diluted. So you can see there that when there were 2 messages, that first message was only remembered by 20% of the consumers, and only 19% remembered the second message, and so on and so forth as you added a third, fourth message. So this continued to snowball. So it was really clear here that across those top 20%, the key thing was having focused communication and keeping that message really clear. Rule number 2 is prominent branding. So making the brand instantly visible and prominent across all frames of the ad. And this is where we saw that of that top 20%, they showed much more prominent branding than the average, and the effect of this was increased brand metrics. So now here, this is a case study using a car brand. And in this instance, the brand wanted to increase awareness through its campaign. It had 2 creatives, both which scored much higher than the average for clarity of branding. So that's on the left-hand side there. You can see those 2 creatives scored much higher than the average digital display campaign. And the brand also saw significant increases in awareness amongst the exposed group, 10 percentage points higher than the control group, which is significantly higher than we normally see. And this was consistent across the top 20% of display campaigns, that branding was prominent and they saw much higher KPIs. So the third rule is to say something new about the product or brand, so giving over new information that will pique the consumer's interest. In this example, we've used a consumer electronics brand who wished to raise intention to purchase through their campaign. On the left-hand side, you can see that it's over-indexed on the statement that the ad contained new information compared to the average digital display campaign. And on the right, you can see that it drove an almost 10-point increase in the proportion who said they intended to buy the product, again, much higher than we're used to seeing. So a significant impact from a fairly logical rule, but really showing how that can work in practice. Rule number 4 is targeting, and it's worth saying Kantar did see here that the relevance to consumers was really key in this rule. Again, this is a consistent theme across much of the 20%, the top 20%, in that they targeted their creative to the audience they were exposing the ad to. But in this example, we have a global travel brand who wanted to drive brand favourability with their campaign, and they had 2 creatives. Both creatives overperformed on relevance to the audience. That's on the left-hand side, so they over-indexed on the statement, the points made in the ad were relevant to me. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that the impact on favourability was high. So amongst the total sample, the exposed group scored almost 7 points higher than the control. And amongst those who were in the market for the product, this rose to 13 points higher. So again, showing the power that targeting can have on your brand metrics. And number 5, we have a likeable ad. It's not a surprising one, but we found that across the top 20%, those who scored high either on a likability scale or who had strong brand associations with words like it being unique, likable, involving, interesting, they were more likely to drive higher KPI performance. In this example, a children's film wanted to increase awareness of the new film through their campaign. On the left, both the creatives that they developed scored significantly higher than the average in terms of likability. And on the right, you can see that the exposed group scored nearly 12 percentage points higher on awareness than the control. Again, this is much higher than we're often seeing in campaign metrics, and which again highlights the power that getting it right can have. And then last but not least, rule number 6, well integrated. Now, to reiterate what I said at the start, the IAB believes that well integrated cross-media campaigns are the strongest. And in this study, what we were able to do through Kantar's database is to isolate the impact that adding digital display to both out-of-home and TV campaigns does to overall brand metrics with very positive results. We haven't shown those results in this presentation today, just for timing, but the results were really positive. And if you are interested in seeing the impact that adding digital to out-of-home and TV had in this study, then please do go to the IAB site, where you can find the full reports there, and it's got a lot more detail on that. But this chart from our section on cross-media campaigns was the strongest, and it's the most powerful that we saw. And what it shows is that integrated and well-customized campaigns over-index in their contribution towards brand metrics. What Kantar was able to do here was to analyse cross-media campaigns across multiple channels, so not just digital ones, but all cross-channel campaigns. So they were able to look at 223 studies here. And out of those 223 studies, they were able to isolate the campaigns that were well integrated and those that weren't. So let me walk you through this chart. On the left is our base figure of 100, which is where we start off if we have campaigns that are not well integrated. Moving one along, we find that campaigns that are similar across different channels but not customised to the channel still show a 31-point increase in overall brand metrics, so that's where it says 131. But the creme de la creme is the last point on the right. So well integrated and customised campaigns can execute a 57-point increase to your net brand impact overall. So the proof really is there in the robust figures. If you have a integrated campaign that works well across different channels, it can really make a difference to your brand KPIs. And it's also worth drawing your attention to the top of the slide again, where Kantar found that of those 223 studies, a quarter, so 26 of campaigns, were not well integrated in their database. And so they were missing out on that extra 57 points in your brand metrics that could have been achieved. So there's so much possibility here, an opportunity to maximise your impact that is being missed out. So those were the 6 rules for making digital display branding campaigns effective. I would just leave them here briefly, so just to remind you what they all are. And then I'll leave you with one other thing. What we were also able to look at through this was the impact that digital display has compared to the spend that is spent on it. So this is using 2018 data from Kantar's database. But what it's really showing is that digital display really outperforms on KPIs compared to the spend, and you really get more bang for your buck when you spend on digital display. If you're looking at the red bars here, the top one is showing the investment spread. So based on 2018 levels, 11% of cross-media budget was spent on display. But it can yield up to 17% on motivation and brand associations. And that's looking at all digital display. If you remember right at the start of this presentation, I said that the top 20% can perform 5 times higher than the average. Well, what that means then is if you're getting it right and you're following those 6 rules, then those figures in red are likely to be even higher. And so digital can well outperform the spend in terms of KPIs. So that is the end of the presentation. That was quite a lot of information to take in. So I'll just leave you with 3 key takeouts that I hope you'll remember. So firstly, getting it right can deliver you 5 times better KPIs than the average digital display campaign. Secondly, there are 6 rules of effectiveness that we've identified to help deliver an effective digital display campaign. And then lastly, digital makes up 11% of your overall spend in a cross-media study, but it can deliver up to 17% of brand KPIs. And I would add even higher if you follow our 6 rules. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that interesting. And I will now hand back to John, and we can take any questions that we've got.
Thanks, Elizabeth, for taking us through that. Yes, it'd be great if anyone has any questions. We would love to hear them. You can just pop them in the Q&A or the chat if you have any. Elizabeth, just a quick one from me. Out of the 6 different kind of rules we've got, was there any sort of view of if any of them have a greater impact than the others?
So I think they all performed equally well, and depending on the campaign, of course, some of them were more important than others. I think the strongest one, and the one that Kantar felt was the one that was most consistent across them, was the first one, which is to keep the messaging focused, just because the numbers were so clear there that as soon as you introduce a second message, your communication was diluted and consumers couldn't recall what the message was as clearly. So having that single message seemed to be the most prominent thing that came through from this research in terms of how to get it right.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions from anyone else that's on the webinar? Very welcome to ask. Please don't be embarrassed. I know you will be though. All feeling terribly shy.
It was also worth saying, just to say, sorry John, to add,
Yeah,
it is much more information on the full report online. So if you have any thoughts afterwards about questions, you can try finding the report online, because there's lots more detail there.
Cool. A couple of questions that just came up, Elizabeth. So one is, could you clarify the definition of display here?
Yes, fine. So yeah, we took the IAB's definition of display. So that was looking at both static and video formats, social and non-social as well. So we're taking the sort of broadest definition of display here. I hope that answers it.
And also a question on whether there are any rules, well, are any of the rules more specific to certain sectors?
So I don't think we saw anything in terms of sectors. Nothing I don't think stood out. What we were able to do here is to isolate the factors that worked for display compared to other channels. So I was saying earlier that we looked at TV and out of home. So that was the sort of other cut that we could look at. But in terms of specific sectors, there was nothing. We didn't sort of ask it in that way. So I don't think we've got anything to share on that.
Okay.
If that's what they mean. If it hasn't answered the question that was asked, you can always send us an email. Use the research@iab.uk.com email address, and we can answer any questions you've got.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elizabeth. If there are any other questions, feel free to pop them on there. Just quickly, a couple of other things to share with you as well. We have, well, firstly, we want your feedback. There's a link in the chat, and we'll also, you'll be directed to some feedback when the Zoom ends. We'd love you just to take a few seconds to do it. We'd also love to know if there's anything you want us to cover in these. The second thing is just to say we have next week's weekly webinar. We'll cover some of the trends that we talked about, looking at audio, video and gaming, and going to those in a bit more detail. So please do make a note in your diary for that. Look forward to hearing from you then. And I think that brings us to an end. So thank you for taking the time out of your day. Any questions, please do follow up with us. We'd love to hear from you. Stay safe, stay at home, take care. Thank you very much.